Welcome to Healthcare Logic for Growth, the weekly show where we talk life sciences and healthcare in general, things like clinical operations, research, commercial strategy, market analytics, and what it takes for anyone in healthcare to grow in a sustainable way. I'm Eric Marr, your host, the founder of Life Science Logic and a current Life Science Association board member. So whether you're building a biotech, running a rural hospital, leading a home health agency, or shaping healthcare policy, this show is for you. Hello, everyone. Today's podcast is titled The Digital Health Dichotomy: Who Gets Funded and Who Doesn't. Funding and how it's distributed is something that's keeping the leadership of a lot of digital health and life science companies up at night. But here's a few salient points to consider as we enter into our discussion today. In the first quarter of 2026, U.S. digital health companies raised $5.34 billion across 105 deals. Sounds like good news, right? Funding is up 20% year over year. But here's the catch. Nearly 60% of that money went to just 12 mega deals of $100 million or more. Companies like Whoop, which raised $575 million in a Series G, and Open Evidence, which raised $250 million in a Series D, are capturing most of the available capital. So if you're a mid-tier or early-stage digital health company, you're competing for the leftovers. And frankly, the math is brutal. So let's state the problem clearly. Digital health funding is concentrating on a shrinking number of companies. The market is creating a have and have not split that's getting wider by the quarter. And this isn't a temporary blip. Rock Health's data shows this pattern accelerating. If the pace of mega deals holds, 2026 will close with nearly 50 rounds worth $100 million or more, almost double last year's count. But here's what that looks like on the ground. In Q1 2026, the average deal size hit $56.2 million, a 144% increase from the same quarter last year. But the average is misleading. Remove the mega deals, and you've got 93 companies splitting roughly the remaining capital. And that's a very different picture. And here's another signal. Deal count dropped 51% year over year. So not only is the money concentrating, but fewer companies are getting funded at all. So why is this especially serious right now? Well, three reasons come to mind. First, the AI hype cycle is distorting valuations. Rock Health noted something important in their H1 2026 report. Investors and buyers have moved past asking who has AI and are now asking a harder question. What can a company offer that AI alone can't replicate? The problem is that many AI-enabled companies are still getting massive valuations based on being AI-enabled, even though technical differentiation is eroding fast. As foundation models improve and AI tools become cheaper and easier to build, the AI premium is evaporating. But that correction hasn't fully hit valuations yet. Companies like Open Evidence, who I mentioned earlier, raised $250 million for what's essentially a medical search engine, a category that didn't even exist 3 years ago and may not exist in its current form 3 years from now. Second, the exit window is barely open. Generate Biomedicines had the only digital health IPO globally in Q1 2026, a $400 million offering. That's it. M&A is the dominant exit route, but that favors established players with revenue and market position. Companies that raised $1 billion plus valuations in 2021 to 2022 are now stuck in private markets with limited exit options, except strategic M&A at significant discounts. That down round risk is highest for the very companies that raised mega deals. Third, institutional investors have changed their behavior. The 110 total deals in Q1 2026 versus 122 in Q1 2025 tells you everything. Venture firms didn't pull back on capital. They pulled back on diversification, right? Institutional LPs, pension funds, endowments, funds of funds, now demand that VC fund managers concentrate capital in high conviction bets rather than spray and pay portfolio construction. The result? Larger checks, fewer deals, and a complete capital shutout for everyone outside the winner's circle. So let's talk about the real world impact on startups and smaller companies, having said those facts. And let's get specific about what this means for the companies that aren't raising mega deals, right? For early stage founders, you're competing for less capital with more scrutiny. The average Q1 2026 deal size of $36.7 million doesn't mean average companies are raising $36.7 million. It means Whoop raised $575 million, while dozens of seed stage founders scraped together $2 to $3 million. But here's the twist. This concentration creates opportunity for early stage operators in a very specific way. And that's probably why you're on this episode today. Because institutional capital is chasing mega deals, seed and Series A rounds are seeing less competition. Founders raising Series A in 2026 are encountering the most founder-friendly terms since 2019. No participation preferences, no board control, no valuation ratchets. The trade-off, you're getting less money, but you're keeping more control. How about for mid-tier companies? You're in the danger zone. If you're a Series B or C company that hasn't achieved escape velocity, you're facing what I call the no man's land problem. You're too big for seed stage terms, but too small for an institutional mega rounds. The 98 companies outside the mega deal club in Q1 2026 are splitting roughly $1.6 billion. That's an average of $16.3 million each. But that's the average. Many are getting far less. And here's the structural problem. Companies raising multiple mega rounds accumulate liquidation preferences that can exceed enterprise value at exit. Open Evidence's $250 million Series D likely came with 1.5 times to 2 times liquidation preferences stacked on top of earlier rounds. That means early investors may need $1 billion exit just to get paid before preferred shareholders. For companies without clear regulatory moats, you're especially vulnerable. Rock Health's analysis shows that the most successful companies are those focused on complex, workflow-embedded use cases, not thin wrappers around AI APIs. A company building AI-powered clinical decision support needs FDA 510K clearance. That's 12 to 18 months of regulatory work and $500,000 to $1 million in compliance costs. Most AI startups don't have the operational expertise or capital reserves to execute that process. But a founder who's already cleared FDA once, knows the regulatory consultants, and has relationships with hospital digital officers, that's a defensible moat no amount of GPT-4 API calls can replicate. So how should you respond, right? If you're a founder or operator in this environment, what do you actually do? So these are just opinions, but we put some down that might make sense to many of you. 5 of them. Here are 5 specific tactics to consider. Number 1, get founder domain expert right. Rock Health's H1 2026 report identified founder domain expertise as a top signal for early stage investors. Founders with real experience inside the health systems or clinics they're selling to tend to spot the operational problems we're solving rather than chasing whatever AI makes possible next. If you're a founder pitching investor, lead with your domain expertise. Show them you've been there and know the environment. Demonstrate you understand the workflow, the politics, the reimbursement dynamics. Number 2, build regulatory moats, not AI hype. The Q1 2026 mega deals went overwhelmingly to consumer health tech and AI platforms because those categories sound exciting to generalist investors. But the actual returns in digital health come from companies navigating HIPAA compliance, FDA clearance pathways, and payer reimbursement contracts. That should be of no surprise to. But if you're building in a regulated space, treat that as your competitive advantage. Companies with FDA clearances, HIPAA compliant infrastructure, and existing payer contracts that are worth, 3 to 4 times more than companies with AI enabled in their pitch deck and no path to reimbursement. Number 3, pursue the buyer as investor model. UC Health's co-investment in Verily's $300 million Series E signals a new category of health system behavior, not merely procuring digital health solutions, but taking equity stakes in the platforms they intend, to run on. This is a clear leading indicator of where health system procurement is heading. If you can get a health system to invest in your company, you're not just getting capital, you're getting a customer, a reference, and a distribution channel. And that's incredibly important. Number 4, build forward deployed engineering capabilities. Rock Health flagged that buyers increasingly want vendors who adapt their products to how work happens on the ground. This is pushing some startups toward forward deployed engineers who embed with customers to co-build custom workflows. Anthropic and OpenAI have each built out life science teams that send forward deployed engineers to build health systems or to help them, right? Companies like Commure and Qualified Health have built their go-to-market around this exact model. If you're a smaller company, you may not have the resources for a dedicated forward deployed engineering team, but you can still embed with early customers, gather workflow intelligence, and adapt your product. Number 5, focus on partnership depth, not breadth. Corporate partnerships contracted 21% year over year in Q1 2026, with 676 transactions globally compared to 855 in Q1 2025. This reflects a deliberate shift from broad pilot portfolios to fewer, deeper, commercially committed relationships. If you're pursuing partnerships, quality over quantity, one deep partnership with a major health system or pharma company is worth more than a dozen pilots that never convert. Okay, let's recap some key takeaways from today's episode. Takeaway number 1. By the way, it's intentional that we repeat ourselves because there's a lot of moving pieces. Priorities make a difference, and we want you to remember exactly the process if this makes sense to you going forward. So takeaway number 1. Funding concentration is real and accelerating. Nearly 60% of Q1 2026 digital health investment went to 12 mega deals. Takeaway number 2. This creates a haves and have-nots split that's squeezing mid-tier and early-stage companies. Takeaway number 3. The AI hype cycle is distorting valuations, but the market is starting to ask harder questions about what AI alone can't replicate. Takeaway number 4. Companies with regulatory moats, founder domain expertise, and deep partnerships are better positioned than almost anybody. Takeaway number 5. The opportunity for early stage founders is better terms and less competition in the seed and Series A market. All those are things that we've talked about, but hopefully that's something you can write down and remember going forward. Now, I know this can feel overwhelming. You're trying to run a company, build a product, serve customers, and navigate a funding environment that seems to be working against you. And just very briefly, this is exactly where Life Science Logic comes in. We're a commercial strategy consultancy serving small life science companies, healthcare companies, home health agencies, small hospitals, and healthcare investors. We help people navigate go-to-market strategy, competitive intelligence, and commercial planning with the clarity and rigor that early-stage companies deserve and, frankly, need. So if you're facing the funding concentration challenge that we've been talking about, we can help you figure out your path forward, whether that's refining your CIP or TOMA tactics, identifying strategic partners, or building the commercial infrastructure that makes you attractive to investors. So as many of you know, we try to close to the end of each episode with an actual go-forward strategy. Instead of just giving you information and helping you take it and use it in your go-forward process, we want to actually provide you with a potential strategy to kind of get it up and running, and then you can adjust it as needed. So here's the strategy for the next 90 days. Step 1, audit your value proposition against the new investor criteria. Are you solving a specific workflow problem? Do you have regulatory clearance or a clear path to it? Can you demonstrate contracted revenue and clinical evidence? Step number 2, identify potential strategic partners who could also become investors. Health systems, pharma companies, and payers are increasingly acting as buyers and investors simultaneously. Who in your ecosystem could play that role? Number 3, if you're early stage, optimize for terms, not just valuation. The Series A market is founder friendly right now because institutional capital is chasing mega deals. Good for us. Don't give away board control or accept punitive liquidation preferences just to get a higher number. Number 4, build your commercial infrastructure now. The companies that successfully raise in this environment have more than a product. They have a go-to-market engine, a partnership strategy, and a clear path to reimbursement. Step 5, stay close to the data. This market is changing fast. What worked in Q1 may not work in Q3. We'll be tracking these trends on Healthcare Logic for Growth on this podcast, and we'll keep you updated. But the change is obvious, it's real, and it's shifting beneath our feet. We also like to share resources. And so before I close, I want to thank our research team who made this episode possible. As you know, and a lot of this will be in our show notes, we drew off of Rock Health's Q1 2026 Digital Health Funding Report and their HI 2026 market analysis. We also used data from Galen Gross U.S. Digital Health Funding Q1 2026 analysis. Healthcare Dive's coverage of the funding concentration trend was also incredibly valuable, as was the analysis from Angel Investors Network on what the concentration means for early stage investors. And of course, we leveraged Life Science Logic Intelligence Engine, our proprietary tool for tracking healthcare funding, commercial strategy, and market trends. Like I said, the full list of resources in the show notes. So if you want to dig deeper, we always like to make that available to you. So in closing, funding concentration is the new reality in digital health, but it's not the end of the story for smaller companies. The market is, in a way, punishing hype and rewarding substance, domain expertise, and critical thinking. If you're building something that truly solves a clinical problem and you can prove it, there will be capital waiting for you. The key is knowing where to look and how to position yourself. Take care. Thanks for spending time with me today on Healthcare Logic for Growth. If this episode brought you value, share it with someone in your network who's navigating their own commercial journey. I think they'll appreciate it. And if you have a healthcare-related topic you want me to tackle, leave me a note at eric@lifesciencelogic.com. Thanks again. I hope you'll join me on the next episode.